everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Jamie, and this is the best magicians you have never heard of. Today's guest is a comedy hypnotist / illusionist. He's known in Ohio as Magic Mike. He is one of the most successful illusionists and hypnotists in the Northeast Ohio region. Collaborating with colleagues, Magic Mike was able to produce his own stage illusion and comedy hypnosis show. It's called Trick-a-Nosis. It's full of mind-boggling illusions and a fun demonstration of the power of hypnosis. Please welcome Mike Brooks. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me. And how are you doing, Jamie?
I'm doing good. Thanks for being here. So why don't you take a minute and tell us a little bit about yourself and your passion in magic?
Okay, well, Cliff Notes version of what I do and kind of how I got started. I was about 5 years old, kind of the typical story. I got a magic kit when I was about 5 years old for Christmas. Drove my family crazy with all of the tricks that I learned from it. And then a few years later, at the Coliseum here, Richfield Coliseum that's no longer, was in the round, I saw Doug Henning perform, and he produced his wife out of the dollhouse illusion, which as a kid watching this was incredible. It was this tiny little box, and it's in the round, so there's no trapdoors or anything. A few years later, drove my family crazy to take me to see David Copperfield, which I've seen him a lot now, but there's a restraining order, just kidding. But I've seen Copperfield numerous times, and after seeing him, I went, this is a perfect way to make a living. How cool would this be? Years later, drove them crazy again to see Penn and Teller, who Penn kind of called me up on stage, and I had to throw a dart at a board. I got it on the first try. The rest of the kids that they called did not. And he kind of called me out and got all the audience on my side to give me a round of applause, which was really cool. Years later, drove my family crazy again to take me to see Harry Blackstone Jr. at the Tangier restaurant, which really cool moment. I shared the wall space with him on their wall of fame, which was a fun moment for me.
That's awesome.
And, thank you. And I saw him float the light bulb over the heads of the audience. He was the super, super nice guy as an entertainer after the show. And I was really hooked. Drove my teachers in school crazy with it. My mom was called every single year for parent-teacher conferences all the way up till my senior year, because some teachers were okay that I did magic in class and others wanted me to disappear. So there's that.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was in high school, it depended on who you were doing the magic to, because you're distracting people that didn't need to be distracted. That's what I used to get in trouble for.
And that's what I did. And then when they would send me out in the hall sometimes, especially my French teacher, then she got even more aggravated because I'd be doing magic in the hall and I'd have a group formed of teachers and people. So
yeah, they don't like it when you get the big audiences.
No. But they let me do magic in high school, so I'm good. So it was good.
Good. So what about magic really excites you? I know you're into a bunch of stuff, but what really gets you going?
Well, the ability to still basically get butterflies when I perform, that's one major thing. Mm-hmm. And even do interviews like this, I'm like, also that feeling of kind of being taken back to childhood, I should also mention. It's almost kind of comparative to if you like Disney or if you've ever been to Disney World as a kid or even as an adult and you see the castle for the first time, there's that magical moment. And if I can get fooled on something that I see another entertainer do, one, I want to be able to do that, but it's kind of that feeling of, hey, let's create something. Let's do something. Let's have an audience be impressed by this and enjoy it and be entertained. So that's kind of what drives me in this business.
I get that. But if you were going to sit down and watch some YouTube videos, what kind of magic are you searching for on YouTube? What do you want to see?
Well, there's so many good entertainers, from close-up to grand scale illusions to mind reading to hypnotists. The one person that stands out in my mind the most, who I watch a lot of, and I make the joke that I love and hate him. I love him because everything that he does is amazing, and I hate him because there's certain things that I can't do that he does, probably for budget reasons as well. But Darren Brown, he's just a phenomenal performer. He really is. His
name comes up a lot when it comes to mentalism.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to show us there? You're going to show us some sort of mentalism? You're obviously not going to hypnotize me. So
I can't do that for any of the people that are watching or you, because then everybody would be asleep, which would then mean that I put people to sleep with my shows, which I don't know how I feel about that.
That's counterintuitive.
Kind of, yeah. Or there's that probably would be bad because then everyone would be sleeping with me. Anyway, that's a whole nother show for another thing. Let's not do that. But the demonstration that I'm going to give today is something that came up. I was doing a corporate event, and someone had mentioned about the amazing Kreskin, another amazing performer, who used to be able to find his check by either muscle spasms or muscle reading and or the pulse going up and down. And the person who had mentioned this while I was at their table at this event said, well, is that how you're going to find your check tonight? And they were the ones signing the check. And I went, no, but instantly I went, I got to be able to do something that's similar to this for this person who hired me. So I grabbed a deck of cards. This can be used with, I believe it's the Zener deck, which is the ESP cards. But at the time I was just, and even now, I've got a deck of cards here. They're bicycles with Neil Patrick Harris backs. If he's watching this, feel free to sponsor me. No, if they're good enough for NPH, they're good enough for me. There you go. But any deck of cards, you can borrow it. And what I did was I had everyone at the table shuffle the cards. I had everybody examine the inside of the box, which was empty, so that there was no flaps or trapdoors or anything, white tigers, nothing like that. When the performer gets the deck back, you take it back from them face down, and you square up the cards. And the reason why you're squaring this up, and I know every magician out here is probably going to know this. If they don't, which there's things that I don't know, here's a little tip. Glancing at a bottom card. It's a wonderful thing for magicians, mentalists, you name it. But as you are squaring this deck up, you glance that bottom card. You put it in the box, and you set the box on the table so everyone can just see it. You can put a glass on it, whatever, to, make sure that you're not touching it.
Okay.
I then brought the person up and I said, I'm going to try to do something here to be able to decipher a playing card with you. But I'm going to have you do this in such a way where the deck is not being touched. You're going to be the one that does this. And then I'm going to feel how your pulse points go up and down. Your pulse rate goes up and down. I'm not even going to look at you. So it's kind of almost like a lie detector test, if you will, with this as well. And I have them take the deck out. If you don't feel comfortable with them doing this because cards may fall, then you do it as well. And they've all shuffled it. They've examined the box. You don't even have to put it in the box if you don't want to, but it gives that moment of separation a little.
Right.
Set this down, and you have them do a crisscross cut, which is very simple as a force. Take a small section of cards off the top, I tell them, and set it down, but do not complete the cut. So I have two piles here, if you will. And I give the audience, or the member, if you will, the participant, the opportunity to add or subtract cards. So if they say add, I have them take some. Now keep in mind that card that you've memorized is on the bottom here.
Right.
If they want to add, they add it to this. If they want to subtract, they subtract it from this. Whatever it is, it gives them the opportunity. And then you go, do you want to do it one more time? If they say no, great. Care to change your mind, phone a friend, you can make some jokes. I then have them take this portion, which has the force card on it, and set it typical crisscross cut, which I think the camera can get that here. One side here on top, which has that force card on top of the other one sideways like that. So that's sitting on the table at this point. You then say to them, I'm going to show you the card that you cut to out of a freely shuffled deck of cards amongst everyone, including them. And you just take that top portion off, and basically you're showing them the bottom card of the deck that came back to you that you already glanced at. Now, this can be used in a number of different effects, whether they're mentalism or just forcing a playing card. Place it back down on there. You already know the card. No one else thinks that you know the card because they've all shuffled this card, the deck, as well as the box seen empty. I then take the lady's wrist. During COVID, don't do this unless you're 6 feet away with one of those grabber units. I don't know. But I grab, usually I say, may I please touch your wrist to make it feel comfortable, obviously, for the lady or the gentleman or whoever. And I say, I'm not going to look at you because I don't want you to give any micro expressions away in your face. And the reason for that is that even kind of plays on that fact of, is this real? Is this something that could be potentially where you really are reading my pulse and you really are feeling muscle movements? Again, going back to that Kreskin moment. You can even use that story. Mm-hmm. I also mentioned that don't try to lie because I might be able to decipher where your pulse rate is. I go in and I make the joke of, oh, well, you're still alive. And then I go, it's either a red or black card. I got a 50-50 shot. And then you start going ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, king, queen, jack. You then go heart, diamond, spade, club. And then you can kind of go into this where you go, well, your heart rate went up when I said spade or club, but I think you're trying to fool me. So then I'm going heart, diamond, spade, club. And you're narrowing it down to what you want to do and kind of playing this out a little bit. And eventually I say, well, since we're dealing with your heart, let's deal with diamonds if that comes up. Now, if we're not dealing with, a diamond and we're dealing with a heart, then I go, since we're dealing with your heart, another little joke or a subtlety. But I get it down to that diamond, and I'm not looking at them, because you will always get those people that have that reactive personality that they start laughing or trembling. And I'm like, don't give me anything to deal with. And the audience is standing on bated breath. Like, are you really going to get this from just feeling pulse points? And I go ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I go, when the high cards were mentioned or the face value cards, your heart rate went up or down and it seemed odd. So I think it's a number card. And then I narrow it down to ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I'm like 7, 8, 9, 10. And then sometimes I will get to the point where I'm like 7 of diamonds, 8 of diamonds. Now I've narrowed it down to 2. And I go 8 of diamonds. So make it look like you're almost going to have a mistake on this. And it just created this moment that this woman was like, there's no way. And it was something that I had to do quickly and come up with. And that's what I call pulse points. The force is extremely simple, but that effect of taking the crisscross force and putting it in the hands of the audience with the box, and if it's a borrowed deck, it's even better. And there's so many things that you can do with that just alone. So I hope that made sense.
It does make sense. The reason I like that trick is that the crosscut force is as simple of a force as you can possibly get. But being that simple is actually what makes it good, because you seem to have done nothing, and it's all in the psychology. They think they've done every step of it, and then you get the time misdirection, and that's why that is so much better than if you told somebody you're doing a psychic crosscut force trick. They're not going to think what they just saw now. That's not what they're going to think. They're going to think that somebody's going to look in my eyes and go, oh, I see red, it's a diamond, it's a 10. It's completely different. Now, that's the kind of mentalism I would do if I can read in your eyes, but those aren't my kind of thing, though.
But this is something that, as it's, for me at least, it's strong enough to do at a corporate event, and literally someone who, it's not so. And don't get me wrong, I have a great admiration for people like yourself who I call the finger flickers, which I mean good. And I have a great admiration for anybody that does really complex card magic. While I am not that guy, something as simplistic as this, where it looks impossible, it looks like you're legitimately reading their minds or reading their pulse points or muscle movements and spasms. You can even take this a step further in saying that you're going to use techniques of NLP, which is neurological linguistics programming. And you roll that off and you go, it rolls right off the tongue, even though you're not.
Right.
It's just kind of creating that sort of, is this guy for real? Is this really happening? Did he really read my pulse? That's creepy in a good way.
And that's it. It's all about, it's built into that whole pulse reading thing. Everybody is into that. And the reasoning behind it, when you're holding a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it's a 10 and it's in there, and they got excited. So that bringing that up, that you recognize that, they're going, oh, really? Now they think, they're like, can he really? And that's pretty cool. Just one little thing though.
Sure.
You got the card wrong.
Did I? I thought I said the 8 of diamonds. See, that's bad. See,
it was the
this
10.
Is what happens. Was it the 10?
It was the 10.
It's the 10. See, this is what happens when you're a mentalist who has not been, who has not worked in 5 months now because of COVID. No,
but you also weren't doing the performance.
I really wasn't. No,
you were explaining.
So make sure. That's
why I let it go. I was thinking maybe what I'd do when you go to say 7 or 8, I'll put it on the screen. He means 9 or 10.
Yes, 9 or 10.
Not the 7. Then I'll put up on the screen. He meant not the 9.
Yeah, not the 9. Don't follow this to the T. No, because it's going to be funny. It will be any type of card that ends up on the bottom there. It could be, now if you keep the jokers in the deck, then just include it in the patter, or is it a joker? Is it this? And you can just mention joker and you don't have to. So, and sometimes I keep the jokers in the deck and I'm just like, well, now what am I going to do? But then,
and that's also proof that you can have a really excellent card trick that has no moves, has 0 moves.
I'm a firm believer and I know the people who do some really, really good, difficult sleight of hand are going to be like, what? I'm a firm believer in that. Keep it simple, stupid. I love simple, but I love things that you can add a story to or add something to that makes it look a lot more impressive than it is.
Oh, absolutely. Cool. When I script shows, I make things as simple as possible. If I don't need to do a move, I'm not going to do it. I'm not doing, like we talked about the crisscross and how easy the crisscross force is. The only people that care about that crisscross force is other magicians. Right? They're going to look, oh, you used a crisscross force. The audience doesn't know. The audience loves it just as much. And like I said, in this instance, I think the crosscut force is better than doing any other force because you're not touching the cards.
You're not. And I love anything where it's not in the magician or mentalist's hand or anything like that, or if it's out in a box that you've sealed, even if it's a trick deck out in a box that you've sealed and you're going to do something. Like, for instance, invisible deck that pops into my mind. If you want to mess around with those cards, good luck to you. I've not done it. But imagine this. You have it out in an audience in a locked box that's clear and see-through. And then you do that particular effect with them. They bring it up. Then you take the deck out and then show it. The presentation of that, which for those of you who have an invisible deck, this would be ideal too.
Right here.
There you go. It takes it away from the performer. And when the person goes back to kind of retrace their steps and tell that story, now there was a deck of cards. It was given to me before the show started or at the beginning of the show. And now all of a sudden, I don't know, the guy had me name any playing card and it was turned, different colors of the deck. It was a red card or blue card or whatever, how invisible deck works, if you will. And he pulled it out and there it was. It's created this moment of something that could be as simple as a trick that you learned as a kid and are now able to do this on stage or in a group setting or a corporate setting that you go, wow, I don't know how much invisible decks are now, but even if it's $20 now, a $20 trick is now playing for a larger audience. So it keeps it simple, but it keeps your hands off of it. And I think that the more that we can get hands off of things, the better, because it just creates these moments for the audience that are like, how in the world did that person do that? That's really cool.
Exactly. I agree. Now, for me, I'm going to show you this just because to give you an idea a little bit about my background is that what I have here is not something that has really anything to do with any magic show I ever do. This is because I absolutely love it, and I do it for me and only me, and that's something like that. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Richard Turner is he's like my idol. The guy is so good, and that's where I learned all my second dealing and stacking and bottom dealing, middle dealing. Not very good at a middle deal, but all that stuff. And what happened is by diving deep into that for myself, some of it appears in my magic just by happenstance, right? Because that's what I do. And that's why I get the reputation sometimes as a backroom gambler over magician. Because if I'm not just doing like normal magic tricks that we all do, right? So I don't care if people think that. It doesn't matter to me. But like I said, that stuff's for me. When it comes to doing magic, I love the simple stuff. It's all about the simple stuff. So obviously, for you in this case about this trick, it comes down to the story and the audience interaction. So what do you think, from watching this trick, what do you think other magicians should take from this?
The first thing that I would say to any kid magician or child magician or anybody that's going to get into this, all the way up to a full-time performer. First and foremost, the one thing that I tell everybody is take an improv class or an acting class. First and foremost, it doesn't mean that you're going to be the next superstar in Hollywood, but take something that if somebody throws something at you. Now, there are times where someone will say something to me or whatever, and I go, I have no idea what I'm going to do with this, by all means, and it's not going to be like an instant trick that comes up into my mind like that did. But when this came into my mind for that time, it was a mix of everything that I had either seen or learned and went, okay, let me take bits and pieces of this and try to create something extremely fast for this person that just asked something. Can I show something that would be similar? And I think that takes back to when I was a kid and my family one summer was like, you're going to take an improv class. And I'm like, I don't want to do anything this summer. Why do I have to do all this stuff? And I did, and I loved it. Getting into, and I'm not saying a huge storytelling, and don't get me wrong, like Eugene Berger and all these people who are amazing performers before he passed, who had a lot of story involvement. I'm not saying that you emulate something exactly like that, but creating something that is a little bit more special than, honestly, could be how this goes. Shuffle the deck, pick a card, great, wonderful, it's the ace of spades. Well, yeah, any of us can do that. And when we first start out, that is what we do. But kind of creating something that lasts a little bit longer and gives them the memory for the audiences, that person did not touch that. I have no idea how that happened. And I have no idea how I cut to a card that he just felt my pulse on. I believe David Berglas, which I would love to read more about Akron, which is the any card at any number. But from what I've heard bits and pieces of things about that was, creating miracles was sometimes, and I know Peter Turner mentioned this in one of his lectures, was creating miracles sometimes with what you already have or what is given to you by an audience. And sometimes we get those moments and run with them.
And you know what? Sometimes you mention any card to any number. I like to make gimmicks. I don't use them, but I like to make them, and I like to show other people how to make them. And they're fun. They're creative, and you can create some absolutely impossible things. And I have a gimmick. I don't know if I did the tutorial on that yet or not. I might have. I haven't posted it, but yeah, it's a really cool gimmick that's any card to any number, and it just blows your mind. It's just hard to accept.
So, I like that.
I'll check and see where I am with that. Cool. It is one of my projects. I'm not sure where I'm at.
That's awesome.
So what type of magic do you do for a living? Like stage, close-up, parlor?
So a couple of different things I do. Right now, obviously, we're not in lockdown, but shows are not actually happening. So, but I will do corporate or even walk around pretty much for adults or teens. So close-up magic for teens to adults. My weekly performances are at 2 different restaurants, one of which is Boneyard Restaurant here in Broadview Heights. Another one is Texas Roadhouse, which I'm going on. I believe it's my, 17th year that we've been there. Awesome. But again, right now we're on hiatus until, hopefully that there's a cure for COVID or something, better happens here with everything. That being said, we were down at Pickwick and Frolic, which is a comedy club for our interactive hypnosis shows. Community theaters, private parties, corporate events, tons of kids shows. I do balloon art as well. So basically, close-up magic, balloon art, kids performances, mind reading shows, also our hypnosis shows, and then we also do intuitive readings with oracle and tarot cards, and then we do also a bizarre seance show that our ghosts show up on time. So it's a mix of almost a little bit of everything.
So if they can think of it, you pretty much do it.
Almost. Oh, and illusions. We do have some illusions as well. I forgot about that.
Okay, so how do people get in contact with you?
Well, a couple of the best ways, and if there's any questions from any magicians that see this of either the tricks or just want to chit chat or whatever, obviously either contact Jamie or myself by all means. And you would contact me either through magicmikeproductions.com or Magic Mike Productions on Facebook. Or my telephone number, 216-780-7031. Feel free to text. Just don't contact me at 3 o'clock in the morning unless it's an emergency and you've dropped your deck of cards and I don't know what I can help you with that, but it'll work.
I'll put that information in the drop down, and I'll put a link up here for your website.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so at the end of every show, I would like my guests to suggest a fellow magician to be on the show. Do you have somebody in mind?
I do. He's a phenomenal performer. I've known him for many a year, and I just actually, he's a nurse by day, I think. Yeah, he's a nurse by day. So he wears that cape as well. And I just recently found out that he has performed for a king. Just going to say that. So very interesting. Hopefully he'll mention that if he gets selected to be next.
The King of Abu Dhabi.
Yes, King of Abu Dhabi. So that's amazing. I know this is, I mean, when he told me this, I was like, you've never told me this ever. Like, what?
And his name is?
His name is David Newman, phenomenal entertainer. And he's also the president of the local magic ring as well. So little shout out to David Newman.
Well, I want to thank you for being on the show, Mike.
Thank you for having me, Jamie. It was a pleasure.
It was very entertaining and knowledgeable. I really like that trick, especially with how simple it is. And it hits so hard.
Thank you.
I took a lot out of this just myself. So I think the viewers are going to love it. Also to the viewers, thank you for tuning in, checking out the interview with Mike Brooks. I hope you got something valuable out of this. And if you did, please hit like and subscribe and come back next week and check us out. Slightly Magic out.
Check out Jamie. Absolutely.
Thanks, Mike.